Marhaba, and welcome to the Matrix Green Pill, where real people connect.
Hello and welcome back to the Matrix Green Pill podcast. I am Hilmarie Hutchison, and today I am so excited to be joined by Mike Khouri as my guest on the show. Mike is a tech enthusiast, an agency founder, an early-stage investor, and stands as a prominent thought leader in the tech space. As the CEO of Tactical, a global future creative and innovation studio headquartered in Dubai, Mike has positioned the agency as a trailblazer. Mike, welcome and thank you so much for joining me today.
Hilmarie, thank you so much. That's quite the welcome. I appreciate that.
Before we get really into Tactical and what you're doing, let's talk a little bit about your background. Tell our audience who you are, where you're from, and how you ended up in Dubai.
So I was actually really lucky. Much my story of when I came to Dubai and where it all started is one and the same. I was born here in the UAE. My parents came from abroad to find a better life in the UAE back in the 80s. Was very lucky and fortunate to grow up in a country where so much change came through, and spent my schooling years here, spent some time abroad in university as well, and then ended up coming back here on holiday and just never leaving.
Growing up in Dubai, what was the dream? What did you think you were going to do when you were growing up?
When I was a kid, I used to play a lot of basketball. There weren't many schools, not at least as many schools as you've got now, and the schools were a lot smaller, so I just thought I was big, taller than everyone. I thought I was one of the best in the city, and all I wanted was an NBA contract every Christmas. That's what I'd ask for my parents. When I went abroad and started playing abroad, I got the realities of the big, scary global experience, and very much brought down to reality. So it was a very enduring place to be able to get exposed to people from all over the world. But at the same time, as soon as I took a step into the bigger cities,
from basketball dreams to traveling abroad and realizing this was not going to be the future, what was the next step of your journey then?
So after I came back to Dubai after university, it was very much about getting settled in and trying to build a career here in Dubai. I saw this as the city of the future. It was still, again, very early doors. So the public profile of the city was very different, at least externally outside of the UAE. But you could just feel the energy. You could feel the buzz. The people that were coming through were just hugely ambitious and wanted to do amazing things. And when my career first started in Dubai, I was very much in marketing and PR. And then over the years, it started to evolve. And again, mid to late 2000s, just before the credit crunch hit, the city was riding high. And so was life in general, right? You're having a great time. Then when the credit crunch did hit, that was a big moment of change in the city. And as a result of that, so did my life change quite a bit, which then spawned a new story, especially with Tactical.
Back in 2013 was when you started Tactical, right?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, so what led you to start Tactical? What was the story behind that?
So the story of Tactical started probably just before then, not long after the credit crunch, during a time when Dubai was very much reeling within the global financial crisis. I ended up breaking my leg playing basketball. In fact, it was Chris Fade. We're playing a game and it was new in Dubai, and it was a mid-air collision, knee on knee. And little did I think of it at the time, but when I came down, that was a big moment of change in my life. One that forced me not only to have surgery and learn how to walk again, but I was also made redundant at the time, lost my job, credit crunch, very much early days of work from somewhere. That wasn't very much an option back then, and ended up building out loads of different business ideas while I sat there in bed for 3 months, trying to solve problems. If anything, a lot of it was just how can I solve these different problems around the world that I was kind of picking up online or just getting exposed to. And one of the things that I came across was very much in the early days of the iPhone revolution. It was back in the iPhone 3G days. It was this concept of effectively the entertainer on mobile, and ended up building this app called Shoot to Do, as in what to do. Spent a year and a half building it out in parallel to learning how to walk again. When public, I thought this was my time. This was my moment. I'm going to be the next Zuckerberg, next Evan Spiegel, building a digital tech business. And when it went live, it was just crickets. No one downloaded the app. Mum didn't download the app. My friends didn't download the app. And it was very much a moment of, what do I do now, right? I'd spent all my money and sort of a lot of time invested into it. And it got to a point where I ended up speaking to a few consultancies, marketing agencies, just, professionals in the trade. When I went to them and kind of expressed the problem that I had with Shoot to Do, I was basically given a lot of traditional solutions to a digital problem. For me, that just wasn't going to play out. The traditional solutions to try and tackle this new business need for me was just very much misaligned with what I saw as a way to drive conversion. And then I couldn't find the solutions on the ground that I needed. So much like I saw when I built the app as well, how do I build this myself? And that was when Tactical was born. I started to go out into market and trying to learn how to take this app to market. And at the same time, people would come to me and say, you've done this thing. Can you build this for me? And I was like, sure. Back in the days of building that app, Dubai was a little bit different when it came to starting a business. I had to be more official, having a license, business plan submitted to banks, etc. It's a lot more, I guess, of an easier onboarding at this point now. But back then it had to become a lot more official, and it forced me to set up the business. And as a result, when I started to build those products for people, I realized actually I wasn't obsessed with building a digital version of the entertainer or fixing the voucher problem. I was actually obsessed with building digital solutions for business problems today and for the future. That's when Tactical was born, building those solutions. And much like I had experienced when those solutions, those web experiences, those mobile apps went live to market, they had the same challenge that I saw originally was shooting to do. And it was, how do I take it to market? How do I build awareness? And for me, it was a lot of that was early days of social and driving it through those mediums. And that's when I figured if I can't find it, I'll do it myself. And that's what I became obsessed with, building those solutions for other brands, bringing them into the digital era and making them be really powerful in their communication to their audiences.
Fantastic that you were on the scene early on and you were able to, from the get-go, when it started becoming or growing into this new space, that you were right there to build solutions. So you've worked with companies like Snapchat, TikTok, Meta, Amazon. I know your focus is to create brand experiences that stand out. Unpack that for us a little bit. Exactly what is it that you do and what is it that you are creating?
My obsession is really around helping build the brands of the future. And when the list that you just shared, you can split them into two. One side, you've got platforms, and another side, you've got brands. And for me, when I got into this space a lot more deeply, especially in the early days of Tactical, a lot of that was driven on social, where a lot of these platforms were shaping culture and shaping the future of comms. For me, I was very much obsessed in how do those platforms drive that, and how do they build culture, and how do they build these brands of the future. Getting close in terms of how they operate was really important to me, which inspired a lot of the innovations that we brought within the business, whether it was launching the region's first made for mobile video studio called Vertical, which was back in the day of actually the same day that IGTV launched globally, or being the first creative partner for Snapchat, Meta, and TikTok, building AR and VR experiences across to actually working with the brands like you mentioned, the Spotifys, Amazons of the world, and helping them continue their path as being these brands of the future. In the case of someone like Spotify, 10 years prior, they didn't exist, but now they want to continue to remain relevant, continue to be these brands of the future. And for me, I'm obsessed with building the agency of the future for these brands of the future.
That's amazing. So you then found your groove, what it is that you want to make a difference in. You did mention sort of briefly some of the business challenges, having to get trade license and become official and all that. Did you have any other challenges getting started in the business?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, back then, money wasn't necessarily an easy thing to come by when it came to starting up a business. So a lot of it was bootstrapped. And I'm a big believer that deliver kick-ass work and you'll build further opportunities. So I was heavily invested in terms of driving the business sustainably. So we didn't take on any external funding, or we didn't drive for hyper growth in a way that would compromise how the business operations would be able to stand up and deliver. I'm not a huge believer of fake it till you make it. I believe that if you step outside of your circle of competence, the minute you're outside of that, you're stepping into someone else's. So you better be sure to deliver on it. There was definitely an element of getting out of comfort zone to be able to make sure that we could deliver solutions for these incredible partners. But back then, a lot of those rails around infrastructure weren't necessarily as clear as they are today, to be able to not just set up a business, but also hire teams, being able to hire in different markets, grow the business in different ways. I want to be able to deliver the right results for the business and build the right business. So doing that means we need to be looking forward about how do we build the right culture for teams? How do we build the right environment for high performance, etc. And a lot of those things I had to learn on the go, learn by surrounding myself with brilliant people. That was something that wasn't necessarily immediately available to me when I started up Tactical at the beginning.
Tactical recently won the Lens of the Year at Snap AR's 2023 Lens Fest. Could you share with us more about the creative process and the innovation that went behind it?
For us, innovation is a huge driver of the business, of our culture. And people throw innovation around very loosely. For us, innovation is built around the mindset of being able to fail fast. And what we mean by that is we want to be able to play with new technologies, play with new ways of doing with not necessarily just business, but also building solutions for our partners and building an environment where that experimentation can thrive. And this lens actually is something that we built through a process of experimentation. We tested out new technologies. We brought it together in a way that drove a lot of utility. And describe a little bit about what that lens did was we, leveraging the power of Snapchat's AR capabilities, we were able to do image recognition of a shoe. So in this case, it's a Nike Air Force One, where if you point your camera at it, it would recognize the type of shoe that it was. You could then point at your feet and you'd be wearing those shoes, and then you could customize it. So you could customize the color and all sorts. So driving real utility in the sense that it's not just a pretty gimmick that you can just play around with. The power of try on before you buy, basically being something that a brand like Nike could be able to take to market and really like become creative with the ways that they connect their audience with their shoes, but also the way they can customize it and potentially, the opportunities to be able to build really strong individual experiences. Now, the reason why I give you that context is it was very much a proactive build. It was one built by a team under an environment of pure experimentation. And it was one that we weren't even aware we were submitting for. Someone in the team put their hand up and took the initiative and just submitted it on our behalf. We quite literally just woke up one morning, saw these posts of the award ceremony and some of our team had been invited to attend. So they were on the ground, but that they were on stage accepting the award on our behalf, which was just an unbelievable achievement. But truly, while we celebrated the award, it was truly a celebration of innovation and being very proactive as a team to be able to test, play with new technology, but then also be able to submit it on our behalf and really walk away with the recognition themselves as well.
Wow, what an amazing experience, and what a fantastic team to do this without you even having to force them or to push them to do something like this. Sounds like it was an amazing solution, and as you said, built through experimentation and innovation. Talking about innovation and the industry, let's talk a little bit about XR technologies. Maybe explain what XR technologies are and how are XR technologies revolutionizing digital.
So it's actually a really exciting time in 2024 for extended reality. So XR being extended reality. And what that is somewhat of an umbrella term for a range of different technologies. You got AR, you got VR, you got mixed reality. There's a lot of different expressions that represent the different experiences you can have with this type of technology. But you've got spatial, that's something come out by Apple with their Vision Pro. But extended reality sort of is the umbrella term to kind of capture all these as a category. And what's super exciting about where we're at the moment, it's been a long time since we have had a product release that has really been quite a statement on what the future can look like. And I'm sure we can all remember when the iPhone first came out. Yes, there was a lot of PR and a lot of celebration around it. But really when you first saw it, you didn't really appreciate the possibilities of what it could do, not just for just the user, but for business, for everything from entertainment, from education, et cetera, et cetera. And extended reality is really having that moment right now where there's been so much talk for almost decades around the possibilities of AR, the power of VR, etc. The release of the Vision Pro, which only just came out 2 days ago, is all of a sudden giving people the opportunity to not just imagine, but to build something that's never been done. And while this is probably the worst version of the Vision Pro we'll ever see, what it does do is show you the possibility that we are going to have a new form of computing come our way that's going to forever change the way we engage and connect with digital experiences. It's not going to happen overnight. For example, the price point itself is quite a barrier. But what's really exciting is the moment in time where we see those possibilities and you can actually play with it. You can touch it, you can feel it, you can build in it. Whereas before it felt a lot more hypothetical. So 2024 is a very exciting time for extended reality. And I may be a massive Apple fangirl in that respect. But for me, I really do believe that this is a moment that we'll look back on in a couple of years and be like, this is when it all really started.
Wow, it sounds super exciting. Now, for the normal person out there a lot of what you're saying might just go straight over their heads. Can you break it down? Can you give us an example of what practically or how practically this can be applied or used?
In today's world, there's multiple forms of touch points, I guess, that these sort of extended realities play their part. So we've got something like social AR, which you have hundreds of millions of people using across Snapchat, TikTok, and Meta. And this is an overlaid interface extended through the power of your phone that allows you to play, allows you to learn, allows you to do so many different things. Like I said, even with the lens that we had built, to drive real utility for branded experiences. Whereas you also have the Oculus, which is really big, especially within, like, say, gaming communities. And it's a bit more niche in the sense of its delivery because there's very richly curated experiences specific to communities. But with the Vision Pro, what's different is it's almost like having a different type of computer screen experience. The possibilities of having a screen in front of you, in terms of enabling you for work, enabling you at school, enabling you at home, become very unique by the applications that you're able to play around with on that interface. With the new Vision Pro, for example, those interfaces is really going to unlock a lot of those possibilities that, we used to think were only made in sci-fi movies for the future. Whereas today you could potentially be, you use Google Maps to work your way around and where you want to go. This almost becomes like your dashboard in front of you, and it points you the way. You could also then be able to look around and be able to identify exactly what that plant is. You could look at an equation, and that equation will do the hard work for you and view the results. And this is just very high level sort of examples, let alone, driving really powerful, user experiences that go beyond just your day entertainment. But even if you're a super fan of sports or you're a super fan of music or whatever else, you can all of a sudden be transported to those experiences, even though you're not physically there. And that in itself, like at the beginning, might feel a bit gimmicky, but as that technology becomes more and more immersed and connected with your environment, all of a sudden it feels like you're really there. So that's where there's really strong use cases for this technology, which is, again, very exciting. It's also worth mentioning that we're not there today, but it feels like we're going to be in the very near future, which again is why the moment of time is so unique and special for us right now.
If I'm understanding you correctly too, huge shift in this huge change. Lots of the hardware that we use today, that we sort of need, the big monitors, the big screens, that's all going to become redundant because everything will be done through the Vision Pro or something similar, right?
Well, yeah, it's a new default, right? So even if you think about communities, you've got communities like China who completely skipped the PC revolution and went straight to mobile. So when it came to gaming, they were playing on their phones straight away. When it came to payment, they were using their phones, digital payments straight away. So they became very customized and comfortable with that medium. There's so many technology touch points right now that for any new technology to completely replace all sorts of technology is going to be very difficult. The Vision Pro does do is all of a sudden it gives you a head or face mounted device that all of a sudden is very rich in its experience, which again will set a new default for other technology brands or businesses to be able to follow, right? So you do have Meta, who's very active in this space. You do have other technology brands that are very active in this space. And what it's going to do is like, well, that's the new standard. How do we then push it to another level, to another level, to another level? And what you'll see is those leaps will be very expressive, especially in the first few years. You'll see a lot of change, which again is very exciting. And we've seen it with the iPhone today, right? Like any mobile, every update seems to just be a little bit better of a camera, a little bit better of a screen, a little bit better usability experiences within the operating system. Whereas the hardware, the technologies, it's already reached such a strong point. And I think we'll see the same journey with these headset devices or these face-mounted devices where all of a sudden in 10, 15 years time, we will be working and playing and socializing in a way that's far richer than it is today, especially with these digital overlay on top of it.
Certainly exciting times. Thank you for explaining that to us and making it a bit more easy to understand. Let's change direction a bit. I want to come back to something you mentioned earlier. You spoke about your team and the importance of your team. I know that you have a very people-first approach in Tactical. How do you maintain your culture while managing a team that's both multicultural and spread across different countries?
Yeah, it's actually been a really exciting evolution of the business. Before COVID hit, we were probably about 20, 25 people going in, and a lot of our team was sitting on the ground. We actually tried to build for a solution that kept the business always on, without people having to be always on. That's when we had to almost build the operating system as a business to be able to function in a way that was very high performing. COVID hitting, that was a roller coaster, and everything had to kind of go into the digital world of the way we worked. It gave us the opportunity, I should say, to be able to work with any of the best talents that we could come across the world. So we always wanted to build not just a high-performing environment as an operating system, but also make sure that we're hiring the very best people that we could, no matter where they were. We would have some criteria in terms of, or a process of how we go through that. It's probably a little bit too expressive to be able to share on the podcast in terms of we'll try and keep it PG, but we want to remove the middle ground when it comes to making decisions around the people or the work that we do. So it's a F yeah or an F no. There's no middle ground. So when it comes to hiring, when it comes to V1 of our work, we always want to make sure that we're going to the extreme of brilliance, right? Like we want to make sure that we're making the right decisions when it comes to hiring. If we're sort of sitting there going, okay, but, or maybe, then it's not the right person for the right role that we're looking for. And that then translates to the work that we do. The reason why I give you that as an example is that if you've got a room of people who are high performers who all look at each other and go, well, I know that you're of the same caliber and you want to do the same brilliant work, it just elevates the standard of work that we want to do. Not just my job, but the brilliant people team that we have as well, do everything that they can to make sure that not only is that environment celebrating the best of the people, but it's also celebrating those diversity that each person brings. And diversity is really important for us, not just because it's where great ideas come from, but also because a lot of the work that we do, we work with these amazing global businesses, but the real value that we bring is being able to get really local, like if anything, hyper local in our delivery. We're not just speaking a disconnected global point of view to a very hyper-localized conversation with set audience where we go very local. And for us to be able to do that, we need people in different parts of the world. We need people in different parts of the city. And we want to celebrate everyone for their capabilities and their agency that they bring to the business. Very much so that it's such a core part of the way we've been built, with a high-performing people-first mindset, so that not only are we getting the best people, but we're giving the best environment for them to thrive.
Because of this approach, this is why you've been so successful, because you've put the right people together. As you said, then they build each other up and they challenge each other to be even better as a group.
It's quite funny. I'm obsessed with technology. I love the power of technology. A lot of the solutions that I was trying to build, especially very on in my career, were very much tech driven or tech enabled. But ultimately, all businesses are built around people. And you want to have amazing people being set up to do amazing work. And very much, the type of business that we want to build into the future is how do we bring the most exciting, challenging problems to the most incredible, brilliant people. And if we're able to do that, I believe the outcome of that is amazing work. And ultimately, that's what we're pointing to. As long as if our outcome is how do we get to amazing work, and we realize that brilliant people with fun, creative, opportunities will deliver to that, then we'll just keep it as simple as that and keep driving that forward.
For those aspiring entrepreneurs listening to this podcast, what advice would you give them about forging their path in a very competitive and ever-changing industry?
Competitive and ever-changing is somewhat of an understatement. When you say competitive, there's so many people who have an impression on marketing these days. You could be the CEO or you could be a janitor. You're on these devices, you're on social, you get exposed to a lot of creative. And it's fair that you have an opinion. Also, when you talk about ever-changing, even if the reason I got in this industry is because I thought the industry was a bit broken and needed a different solution. And if anything, it's only now that I'm in it, I see even more cracks in it, right? Like I think the industry is in a very important time right now to get right. But the only reason why I'm still in it, the only reason why I'm looking to drive change and build this agency of the future is because I'm obsessed with it. And I recently did a talk actually to a group of school kids, and it wasn't about what do you want to be when you grow up? It's what are you obsessed with? And most people don't know what they're obsessed with. They kind of go around life meandering, kind of trying to figure out where their comfort zone is or what they're good at. It's not very intentional. And that's fine. You just need to be clear that I'm going to experiment. I'm going to try different things. I'm going to look at different things. I'm going to find where I get serious reward from the different experiences that I'm going through. And then I'm going to go deep. And that's when the obsession kicks in. Because for those who game, they get it, right? They'll stay up till 6 a.m. to play and finish that game because they just want it. Like they're obsessed with driving that outcome. And I think if you built like that, you've got the first step of building a big successful initiative or endeavor out the way, because most people go into new opportunities without that, or new businesses or industries or careers without that obsession in mind. And that's when times get tough, they start to question, why am I doing this? When times get repetitive, they're like, I'm just a little bit bored. But someone who's obsessed doesn't see something, a difficult moment, as one that scares them away. They face up and they try and overcome it. For those who are obsessed, they don't get bored. They're constantly, when they realize they're bored, they're going to scratch deeper. So if you're looking to come into the creative industry or any other industry, very much find what you're obsessed with and then go deep. And if you don't know what that is, that's absolutely fine. Just experiment, but know that you're experimenting. When something starts to click and gets your attention and you're a bit hooked, start scratching, go deeper and just find out what you're obsessed with.
Excellent. I think that's good advice. Find the thing that you're passionate about. And as you say, if you haven't found it yet, just be willing to experiment until you find that thing and then go deeper in that. Excellent. Thank you so much for sharing that with us. Now we've come to the segment of our show where I'll ask you some rapid fire questions, our version of a game show. Are you ready?
Let's do it.
If you were to create a virtual reality experience for a fun-filled vacation, what destination would you choose to showcase?
I would want to be in the middle of a forest deep north of Norway, just away from everything.
Very nice. If Tactical were to partner with a fictional character for your next innovative project, who do you think would be the perfect collaborator?
Batman came to mind, but I don't know why. Maybe Iron Man. Let's do that.
Considering your passion for championing technology-led creativity, what would be your go-to karaoke song during a tech-themed karaoke night?
Probably something out of AC/DC, Thunderstruck.
Okay, I love it. If you could have one superpower, what would it be?
Predicting the lottery. That would be a good one. No, probably reading people's minds. Power. That would be great.
Yeah, that's good. What is one thing you do every day, no matter how busy you are?
Make sure I am home for bedtime. It's non-negotiable for me. I'm a late bloomer in the parenthood and we have 2 kids. They've taught me more to life than anyone else and want to make sure that I'm there at the very least for bedtime every day.
Very nice. Thank you very much for playing along. That was easy enough. Now, before we wrap up, we'd like to do our Green Pill moment. What was your Green Pill moment, the action or event that was the turning point for you or your career?
When I talk about the story of Shoot to Do starting and I broke my leg, that was actually, as I coined it, the best and worst day of my life. It was the worst day because my life just came to a halt. But it was the best because it gave me the path to make a choice. And a lot of that choice was, I was made redundant. I was told I was never going to be able to run again and maybe not even walk again. And I needed to put in the hard work. Not only was I doing physio at the time, I was also trying to think how do I not only just survive in terms of look after myself, but also what do I want to do with my career? And what I ended up doing was putting all my distractions in a box. So I got my Xbox and I got all my DVDs and everything and put them in a box. And I was like, you know what? When I figured that out, I'll come back to this box if I still want it. And I've not opened that box since. For me, that green pill moment was when I'd never felt so low in my life and not so clear on my direction or what I was going to do, just making the choice to step up and know that it was going to be a long and challenging journey, but just to stare fear in the face and not be scared of that. Take the first step, whether it was through physiotherapy or take the first step, whether it was failing my first business, but just making sure I wasn't scared enough to take that first step. So that was very much my moment in time where, like I said, it was the worst day of my life, but also the best day of my life because it really gave me the opportunity to make that hard choice.
Wow, what an amazing story. Thank you so much for sharing that experience with us. Certainly inspiring, and what you've accomplished in the last just over 10 years surely is very inspiring. Now, before we say goodbye, could you please tell our listeners where they can find and follow you? And we'll also put this in the show notes.
I'm probably best followed on LinkedIn, truthfully, just Mike Khouri. And if you've got the link, we can put it in show notes. That's probably the place I'm most active. And if you want to connect or reach out, whether that's to just meet like-minded people or just have a chat, I'd love to hear any feedback on just this episode, but also understand especially what people are obsessed with. So do feel free to reach out.
And Tactical, what is the website address?
It is wearetactical.com.
Excellent. And then all the social media links will also be on the website.
Yeah, they're all We Are Tactical as well.
Super. Mike, thank you so much for being here. It's been an absolutely fascinating discussion. As you say, we're on the cusp of some big changes ahead, not far ahead. So that's been very interesting to talk about. I appreciate you taking the time to be here. I'll certainly be watching your journey and Tactical as well. And I wish you and Tactical all the very best.
Thank you so much for your time. I had a really good time. Appreciate the chat.
If you enjoy our conversations, please like and subscribe. See you next Wednesday.